Hey, welcome to Bestball Maniacs, a proud member of the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network. My name's Brad Reyes, and I'm the play draft expert here on the show and also at TQE. You can find me on Twitter at Mean Mr. Mode.
And I'm Jeremy Browand, a.k.a. Dynasty Madman. You can find me on Twitter at DFF_Madman. I'm on a couple other podcasts at Dynasty Trades HQ and my own pet project at Off the Rails Dino. And you can find me all over Twitter, where Twitter is found.
Awesome. So let's just dive right into this is our first episode. So let's just kind of get right into why on earth are you here?
Tell me why. Tell the listeners why.
Let's see. Well, first of all, welcome to our new show here. It's going to be a lot like the Bestball Owner's Manual that you may be used to. The hosts haven't changed. Really, the style of the show hasn't changed, but we are kind of get into the a little bit more of an introduction to Bestball with this episode, seeing as how we're trying to reach a new audience here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thankful to be taken aboard the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network. We're excited about that. Just new digs, same two guys, same show. And yeah, there's actually a lot to Bestball, Brad. I think people maybe don't understand. So for some of the people out there that only dabble in this game or maybe haven't played it yet at all, even for some of the the people that are really into Bestball and play in a lot of leagues, I think there's a lot to learn during this show. So why don't you just explain what Bestball is, and before we get to the advice, what is it, and why do we play it?
Well, one thing about Bestball is a lot of people are attracted to it is that it's a little more convenient because there's a lot less in-season management. There's generally no trades. There's also no waiver wire, so that makes it a little more convenient. Plus, there's no bench to worry about since your highest scoring players fill out your roster. Say you have a roster where one quarterback scores, two running backs, and three wide receivers. Well, those are going to be filled out from your pool of players. So you don't have to worry about, and I'm making sure you plug in the right players from your bench and hoping that you guess right that week.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that, Brad. That's me. That's the appeal for me. I didn't even know when I started playing Bestball that I would like it as much as I do. And part of it is I don't have a ton of time to set my lineups for my head-to-head leagues. I don't have, in a lot of Dynasty leagues, I don't have the time to dedicate to it properly. And I've often made a lot of wrong choices in my starting lineups. I typically draft really pretty well. I almost always have a competitive team from the talent on my roster, sometimes deep at positions, but if you don't get the starting lineups right, it's tough to make a title run. So I find that I do pretty well in Bestball because I'm able to draft successfully. I'm able to draft competitive teams and a lot of times hit home runs on players that I like and I'm taking a shot on, and that kind of makes me feel better. It kind of proved that I was right about those players shining that season, whereas in redraft it's the same kind of thing. You have the starting lineups all season. In Dynasty you're stuck with the bad choices. If you make enough good choices in this, it picks your best lineup for you, and it's I've done really well. And so I've actually become more and more of a fan of Bestball over the years, even though I'm this huge Dynasty fan, a huge Dynasty player. And it comes from all the experience in drafting and loving drafting. You draft it and then kind of forget it.
Yeah, that's one of the aspects of it I like, too, is when you got a player like Julio Jones, who's, known for going through lulls without touchdowns. And, when you have a system with a bench, you have to guess what games he's going to have those touchdowns.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, with Bestball, no more guessing. You just draft him, and he performs. It's pretty nice. You don't have to guess which days it's going to be.
And you're going to draft Julio probably just a bit higher than you would in a startup draft for your Dynasty League or whatever, because you're looking to capitalize on those huge Julio weeks that he always puts up.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean that's another part of player evaluation that comes in is, what's this player's ceiling and what's their likelihood of hitting it on a per week basis is pretty important. Where the rubber meets the road with that particular aspect of it is when you start looking at the wide receivers further down the list.
Yeah.
When you're looking for the air yards guys, you're going to have those big games and then disappear for 5 or 6.
Those guys are valuable,
those guys are much more valuable in this league than sometimes in a half point PPR you'd kind of lean toward more slot receivers just to pick up the easy PPR points or the half point. But in this case, you kind of want to hit swing for the fences and hope for those bigger games on a per game basis. as opposed to dribbling in a smaller amount of numbers.
So if you like risk, if you like taking shots on players, and your best guess on who's going to have a decent season or who's going to have those nice spike weeks that can end up being in your starting lineup, it's definitely the way to go.
Like I said, the lower end wide receivers are generally a little more valuable on a site like Draft or in some of these larger formats like on the FFWC.
Yeah, so you don't have to worry about what week are they going to be valuable. You stack them on your roster and wait for their week, and they might end up scoring enough to be in your starting lineup. Hopefully that's one of your other players' bye weeks. But the lack of thinking about it, just drafting your roster based on talent, it's more like it's more like being a GM. Let's get the best talent for our team. Let's draft it. Let's get it going, and then someone else can coach it and get these players in shape and see how the record pans out. My work's done. I got you talent. Now you go win for me.
Right. Yeah, and this year I think you're going to see a lot of people taking running backs very early, and I think that's a great strategy. About 2 out of my first 5 picks are going to be running backs, and the rest are going to be best available. I probably won't have very much Mahomes, but I'm also not avoiding him either if I can get him in the late 4th round, or even if he dropped into the 5th, which is pretty rare. Another aspect of maybe getting a quarterback that high would be if you're trying to stack Kansas City. It's pretty easy to take Kelsey in the 1st round, look for Mahomes in the 3rd, take somebody from a different team in the 2nd round, and then you could still come around and get Williams as your running back.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. The thing that you said that stood out, of course, is that your first 5 picks, you want a couple of top-shelf running backs. Any reason why listeners would want to do that same thing? A lot of players in any league go for those top-tier running backs. It's not a shock, even in a Superflex league, to see the first 5 picks off the board, maybe 3 to 5 running backs in those 5 picks. And then, of course, you have the quarterback chasers, and if you don't have a quarterback gone by pick 5 or 6, it's an unusual Superflex draft. But why do you suggest it for Bestball?
Well, in your first 2 of your first 5 picks, you're generally going to get somebody who not only runs with the ball but also catches enough passes to have that upside in their ceiling, which is another aspect of Bestball that's important. Make sure that your running back is involved in the passing game.
Oh yeah, that's my favorite kind of running back. Period. Anyway. But in Bestball, it's so much more important. Yeah,
I mean, I'm interested in like the Derrick Henrys in the 3rd or 4th round as sort of a supplemental back, but I'm not thinking he's going to carry my team. It's like you can't count on the touchdowns. You can count on target volume a little bit more.
Yeah, and that's what I like to shoot for too, with like Tyreek Cohen, Tevin Coleman, guys that it's not going to take a ton of targets for them to have a really great week. Tyreek Cohen, he's targeted 8 times in a game. That's probably going to be a game where he scores enough points to be one of your starting running backs, and he didn't even carry the ball. He was targeted, as a slot receiver or out of the backfield maybe on 3rd down. But he's got the kind of talent in the way that Chicago runs that offense to get you a lot of points, and you didn't have to draft him up with those top shelf running backs. Yet some weeks he's scoring as much or more than they are.
Right, and you got a guy like you said, a guy like Cohen. He's actually coming down in ADP to where he's very attractive in the 6th round.
Yeah, he is.
So I'm looking at him a lot more. He's got that big playability, and he's a known quantity in that offense. We still don't know exactly what to expect out of Montgomery.
Yeah, no, I mean I'm sure he'll be fine. I know they really like him and they got him for a reason. But I don't think that affects Cohen. That's what's funny about playing fantasy football. There are so many trends and spikes in value and players that go up and down. And Twitter feeds into that a lot with almost like changing the market because of groupthink. Tons of people will be down on one player, and I think that's affected Cohen. Everyone expects that suddenly Montgomery's going to take not only Jordan Howard's role, but also Cohen's role, without realizing that Cohen was used like a slot receiver, I don't know, like 19%, under 20%, but close enough to call it that, last year. Right. Basically, you're drafting a guy who plays running back, that's a slot receiver, and is getting targeted like a wide receiver. And in that offense, and of course you want a PPR running back like that. The scoring is, there's no cap on it really, and you want to capture, like you said before with Julio Jones, you're not necessarily going to know what week you're going to want to plug him in as more than a flex player. But when you do have him in and he hits, you're going to be glad he's your flex player. In this case, in best ball, he's in your lineup as long as he scores well. So I definitely like to go for those upside players. And I know you've seen in some of the drafts we've been in together, I've targeted guys like that, and I talk about Lamar Miller all the time, and just players, and they're usually the guys that catch passes. They're not not Jordan Howard, although he can do the same thing and have a great week as well. I don't feel like there's as much upside with those grinders. You know what they are. Their value's kind of capped. You're not going to get a huge value play on drafting them in these formats.
Yeah, I mean, kind of a rule of thumb for me is I'll take a guy who gets 15 carries and 10 targets over a guy who gets 30 carries.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, that's just the kind of volume I'm looking for on the ground and in the air. Now, and that's with your first 2 picks out of your first 5. Now, if we're talking...
Right.
If you get further along the draft, and I noticed that this draft, you're looking at taking a passing down back pretty much anything after the 8th round, I think, because I just don't see enough. There's nobody left at that point that has enough volume on the ground to interest you or who's really going to get any touchdowns.
Is Thompson appealing to you for the Redskins still? I mean, is he someone you're talking about in those? He's always available late, is why I asked.
Yeah, he's always available late. I've been taking him, 17th, 18th round. Wow. I don't have a lot of exposure on him, but I do have some, especially in the best ball championships that they're running on draft. That are, you're going to have to run a very long shot type of team to score in that. To score a high score and get consistency out of it.
Right, and Thompson's a guy that every year he has a few key games where, you're not looking at him for an entire season or all 16 games to be valuable, but you are looking for those few games that he's, really good every year, and he's proven that year after year that he can have a few solid games like that. When you were talking earlier, and I meant to ask you this before, but when you try to get 2 of your, top 5 picks at the top like that, who are the running backs that you're most interested in, and maybe it's a range of guys, sure, but what are you trying to do? Like, which players are you after in those first 5 round running backs?
Well, if I can get David Johnson would be like one of the top ones that comes to mind. He's out of the top. He's in the top 5. He's an obvious pick. But if you look at what I'm looking for is he gets volume on the ground, and he gets he sees plenty of activity in the passing game. They're going to be using him out of the shotgun, so he's a very attractive piece.
Yeah, you're expecting even more passing results from him this year. The PPR game for sure.
And he doesn't have a strong backup behind him that looks like he's going to. Nobody on the team looks like it's taking away targets from him. I really like DJ this year. Like I said, he's in the top 5, though. That's a pretty easy one to go around suggesting to people. Sure. Let's see. I'm also, I'm interested in seeing what Lev Bell does with the Jets, but I'm not really as on him as I think I wish I'm going to have been. But I don't know. Yeah. I don't know about Gase and his use of running backs. So I actually, in the second round, I generally take a wide receiver because you can get a Odell Beckham very easily in the second round, sometimes the third round of some of these contests. I like the upside of Odell Beckham. Then we move back into running back territory back in the third round, and you could still pick up guys like Kerryon Johnson who are going to get carries, who are also going to get see some action in the passing game and possibly be the first option in the passing game for their team.
Yeah, he's even come out and said he doesn't want to be a bell cow for lack of a better term. He doesn't necessarily want to be that running back. So, I mean, even if you expect him to not play, a high snap percentage like a Christian McCaffrey, he's going to be involved in the passing game, and it's a heck of a good player to get. He had, before getting banged up, he was doing awesome last year as a rookie in that offense.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he was looking like a banger. I'm surprised they have Riddick even this far onto the team. So let's see. I wonder if Riddick is actually going to make it through camp and make it to the team. Because there's really not much. There's going to be, there's really not much need to keep him on the roster when you have Kerryon Johnson being able to catch passes. But then again, it's the Lions. What am I supposed to do? Guess what they're going to do?
Yeah, the Lions have kind of been a mess, man. They just can't capture the magic for long enough to do anything with it. Yeah, we'll see. I like that advice. Kerryon's a guy I target too. I don't always get him, or usually don't actually, but I think people are willing to take him higher than I have so far.
Well, I mean, he's not necessarily a guy I'm targeting, but I guess what I'm saying is he's the type I'm targeting.
Yeah.
And the exposure to the passing game's there. His ability to break big plays is there. I like him. You can get Cone so much later in a draft, so you can actually stock up at running back pretty well. I mean, in your first 6 picks, have 3 running backs. Mm-hmm. and be pretty set for the rest of the draft, and still have that flexibility in the passing game.
I'm going to do one where I don't take a running back until later, just to see how that team shakes out. I know a lot of other factors will come into play. There's too many variables that can't be an algebraic expression where you know whether it worked or failed, because there's too many other things moving at the same time. But just out of curiosity, I want to see if I skip running backs for a few rounds in. Not going 0 running back necessarily, but just work on other positions first, tight end, wide receiver, quarterback, and then lean toward getting some of those running backs, Cohen, Kerryon Johnson, just some of the pass-catching backs and the ones that are falling into a sweet spot like that, and see if I can't come away with a decent team. That's not typically how I would do it, but I'd like to see how that would shake out. I'm curious.
Yeah, and if you're going to do that kind of thing, you're committing yourself to about 7 running backs. 6 or 7.
Instead just of because, all the wide receivers like I normally do.
Right. I mean, there's a trade-off there. I mean, because they end up becoming sort of like short yardage wide receivers, if that makes sense.
No, I get it.
Yeah, you end up looking at a bunch of slot receivers as your for your running game. Mm-hmm. That's the only real danger that there is there.
So it's possible for that team to maybe compete for it.
Oh, it's possible. I mean, those types of outlier teams are probably going to do pretty well in these long shot type drafts where you're up against a lot of different people. Once again, going back to that like draft championship that they're doing, you're talking about like 150,000 entries. So yeah, you're going to be doing some real long shot stuff in these things to try to beat the group, and you're going to want to hit on a guy late in the draft.
Yeah, you want your team to be an outlier or a team of outliers, but you're going to have to hit the right players in order for that to happen.
Right, and that's what we're here to help you get better at, is picking those players a little bit later in the draft that boost you up instead of drag you down. You don't want those empty calories with your 16th through 18th picks.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that was kind of the general best ball advice.
Yeah. Well, what other kind of advice would you start out with getting into this game?
Well, I mean, you're going to look at let's think about how you're going to handle the draft. Since it's a snake draft in most cases. Well, in fact, just about every case. Occasionally you see an auction. I know Draft has auctions during the season, but I don't think they're having any for their season long. So managing a snake draft's a little bit different. You kind of need to look, a couple of rounds ahead, and also be cognizant of what the opposition is doing. Mostly because you can use the strategy of decapitating a position, which is one I usually like to do if I have a snake draft, which is to take the top 2 players at a position and just take them right off the bat, especially if there's like going to be some separation between those top 2 and the next guy. I think that's good, and that's a strategy that's actually easy to fall victim to. So that's you gotta need to watch it and look at the team's needs. If a team needs 2 quarterbacks and he's coming up on the turn, you could take 2 quarterbacks right out from under you. Especially if you're hitting that part of the draft where you're trying to make decisions between Trubisky and Prescott and Allen and Eli. Let's see. This will scrape the bottom of the barrel and
Can't forget about Eli.
You can't forget about Eli. Can't forget to make fun of Eli. It's not a show if you're not making fun of Eli. It's not a good podcast. But yeah. So that's one aspect of the snake drafts I think is very important. It's a strategy I like to employ, is the decapitation of each position of the position that's best for you to do that too. And that'll happen a couple times during the draft if you have a turn. But also that's a strategy I like to watch out for and prepare against. So I generally draft a very balanced roster starting out.
Yeah, so you don't become victim of that, and you're keeping close tabs on what the other drafters are doing in case someone is using that same approach. And that's something that's really good advice. Basically, these things are kind of dynamic. Well, they are dynamic, and you have to play it that way. That's one of the appeals for me, and the same for auction drafts like this, is it's never the same. You have people that go for all the guys that they love. You have people that have more strategy or some tactics, and you have to figure out maybe what they're doing. It's always different. It's a different mix, and it's fun like that. It's challenging. But the one thing that you just made clear and made a point that I like to try to not sell, but just a point I try to make to listeners, is that you can't go into something like this with only one principled way to draft or only one philosophy. And I've preached about this for a long time, but it was zero running back for a long time, and or late round quarterback. All these sorts of ways that people would try to force the issue that they could win by doing this strategy, and that's great. You can win. People have proven that you can do it, and it works, and you get a competitive team. And in Dynasty, it all buffers out anyways over the years if you fix your mistakes. But in best ball, if you're not careful and paying attention to what other drafters are doing and just kind of looking, this guy's available and this is what I can do, you have to be ready for the turn, like you were saying. You have to be prepared. If other people are doing it the same way you are, you might want to zig when they zag to try to still come away with a better team and not just stick to your guns so strongly, or so, it's a word I'm looking for there. I need a Roget's thesaurus here. Not so philosophically stick to something religiously. You have to be flexible.
Not so dogmatic.
There you go. That's the word I wanted. That's the word I wanted. I didn't have enough coffee
I saw
today.
the word coming, and I was like, "Oh,
damn it!
It's dogma. It's dogma.
Dogma. You don't stick to dogma in a play draft."
Yeah, and you don't. I mean, I like to decide my how a draft is going to go within my first 5 picks. If I have 2 good running backs and say a tight end and a couple of wide receivers, I mean, that leaves me, in pretty good shape to do just about any strategy I want. So, I do believe in the first available approach for the first maybe, 5-6 rounds.
Yeah, that's good advice.
So, I don't believe in going in and saying, I'm definitely doing 0 RB. You just don't know what's going to come up.
Right.
I mean, you don't want to, like, keep yourself from making a positive change in your running game just because you're sticking to a plan that might not work out in the, especially if everybody else is running the same plan. Because I've noticed that too in several.
I have seen that. Yeah, people they're all trying to stick to the same plan, and that just allows you to get tremendous value in another way, other positions or whatever. And you have to be flexible and just don't stick to something to your own detriment. It's silly.
Yeah, and don't go chasing other people's rabbit holes either, because you generally get worse players than they're going to get. I noticed that too. It's like if a lot of people are doing the whole everybody's running for running backs right off the bat. Well, if you follow the crowd, you're going to get the ass end of the running back group. And
exactly.
You're not looking at the best players. I mean, you're passing up a lot of good opportunity in the passing game, and I just don't believe in that.
Don't go chasing running backs.
Don't go chasing ass. Don't go chasing that ass end of a draft. Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah, don't get caught up in runs either. Try to stay ahead of those. That's another reason why I like to do the decapitation thing if I'm doing 2 picks close together, because I like to be the one that starts to run, not being the person who gets run on.
Yeah, that's the worst feeling, that you had a plan and now you're obligated to take a quarterback or whatever position that might be because the run started. I do a pretty good job of avoiding them. At some point in the future, we'll have to talk about that. But you inevitably, if you're weak in a position, it's bound to happen during the draft that you better be prepared to wait if you're going to stick out your strategy for that draft. It's like a wave. You want to be on it, not too much before it.
Right.
Before it's good, just not after it. You don't want to get hit by that damn wave.
Yeah, it's like surfing. Yeah, you want to be surfing the wave, not clobbered by it.
Right.
And let's look at another aspect of your team that you can do is stacking. Now, I find that best ball is kind of a 50-50 thing with me with stacking. Mm-hmm. Some drafts it goes really well, and some drafts it's an absolute disaster.
Well, people talk about it a lot now, mentioning the stacks,
Yeah.
They're trying to get the quarterback and the receiver, their quarterback and the running back. They're trying to do that. Explain why that's so great. I need to know why so many people look at that as a thing nowadays.
Well, I mean, if you're getting a good piece of a good offense, if you can get the top wide receiver and the top quarterback from, if you're looking at Deshaun Watson and Nuke, well, then, you're looking at one hell of a nice team. You've captured a lot of the passing game in just 2 players.
Yeah, that's a stack I'd love to have, is Watson and Nuke.
And the danger of that is if one of them gets injured, then your stack starts looking, especially if the quarterback happens to get injured, then your stack really just kind of falls apart. That's what happened to me last year with the year before last with the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers.
Oh yeah, because he got hurt. Yeah, and then it ruined your stack.
Yeah, and I had a lot of Green Bay stacks that year, and still came out ahead a couple of years ago. That's why I was thinking it was last year, but it wasn't last year.
So it's like a boomer, 2 years back. So it's a boom or bust kind of thing, because you can really capitalize on it. In the case of Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins, Nuke, that could potentially be huge. But if Watson were to get hurt, not only do you have the loss of that one player, but then maybe the success, profitability of the wide receiver as well, because he's playing with a lesser receiver quarterback. Now, it might be close to the same. Who knows? But he's probably going to take a drop. So it's exacerbating your loss because the stack mathematically it can give you that +1 or whatever, but then minus 1.5.
Yeah, well, I mean that's the risk. I mean the reward is there. So I mean it's a very good strategy in terms of telling people to do it, but there are risks involved, and I think that the risks don't really get put out there quite as often.
Yeah, the risk is not going to steer me away from doing it if I can. I mean, it's just not.
Right. No,
because you gotta in this game in best ball, you definitely want to shoot for the stars, so to speak. And that if you have Watson and Nuke or any other good combo, it's worth that risk. You can't live in fear in a best ball.
No, you can't live in fear, but you also can't do it with the wrong quarterback and the wrong wide receiver combinations, like
Eli Manning and Sterling Shepard. Just kidding.
That would definitely come into play. I mean, I'd be much more apt to take Sterling Shepard than Eli Manning.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get the idea. I mean, you don't want to, at a certain level, if a program doesn't have an elite quarterback and an elite receiver, maybe don't stack them.
You want two elite players, yeah.
Yeah. You don't want crappy players. You don't want a bad quarterback stacked with a bad, running wide receiver or a receiver that's dependent on a bad quarterback. That's just unfortunately a draft killer.
We don't like draft killers.
No. And speaking of segment killers, we can move on to the current events portion of the show.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah. Anything exciting to talk about today?
Exciting? No. No.
Okay.
Nothing. I mean, nobody got fired this week.
It's one of those weeks, huh? Yeah. It's one of those weeks.
Yeah, it's one of those weeks where we have speculation week. We've seen Tyreek Hill move up the ADP chart a little bit. I like him at 55th on draft and on 88th at the Fantasy Football World Championships. I think that's a little bit of there's an advantage to take there in those particular contests.
Heck yes.
Because he's probably not going to do very much time as far as this goes, and I don't mean legal time. I mean league time. He's probably not being suspended for much more than I'd be surprised to see him get an entire 6 games out of this.
Yeah, I actually saw someone state that they thought it would be more like 2 games. It would be less than 4, like 2 games, which you're still going to draft him in best ball if he's only missing 2 to 4 games. I mean, come on,
Absolutely.
You got the rest of the season for those tremendous weeks to be your wide receiver 1. And you're not paying that price to acquire him. No,
and the best ball potential of the player is just outweighs whatever moral conundrum you might have. I mean, unfortunately, he's very good in that offense. So ignoring Tyreek Hill's probably, going to cost you some money in the long run.
Yeah, I have to be agnostic about that stuff. I found that it's just impossible. It's tiring. It's exhausting to try to figure out which players are good guys and which players are less than good guys and which ones, donate to charity and kiss their mothers, on Mother's Day. I can't do that in this game. I just separate that and draft players and potential and the numbers because it's not on me to be, judge, jury, God, anything for these players. I can't do it. And I try not to debate with people. I hope these guys aren't bad guys, but you know what? Just like any other occupation, a slice of the American apple pie, there's some out there. It's not my job to find them, keep my family away from them, but when I'm playing games like this, I just want the best potential points I can get my hands on and not think about what they do in their spare time or their private lives. It's not my business anyway.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, that's the game we're playing here is, these guys put up numbers. I'm only interested in the numbers.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill's not my friend. Nobody that he's friends with probably is going to be my friend. I don't know him, so it's a little improbable of me to try to figure that stuff out.
And as a fantasy player, you're not putting money in his pocket by having him on your team.
Exactly.
So there's really no moral issue with.
Yeah, there's no moral dilemma for me. Although
you're
it
not
sucks
putting him to work.
Yeah.
You're not making sure he gets a check for every week, despite the fact that we kind of have our feelings of what he probably did.
Right? Yeah, and you presented it clearly there. It's not a moral dilemma for me, the fantasy football player.
Right. And I just don't believe in getting caught up in that. But I'll shut up about it now. Yeah. Because now I sound like I'm on a soapbox.
It was a good soapbox, Brad.
Oh, I'm sure it was. Everybody loves those. I listen to Brad Reyes so he can tell me how to live my life. No,
Live a clean life, man.
no, don't. Anyway, let's talk about Kyler Murray. His grasp on the Cardinals' offense has been impressing veterans like Larry Fitzgerald. So, what do you think this will do with his ADP this year? Are you a Kyle Murray believer there?
I'm fine with Kyler Murray. I'm sure he's going to be perfectly fine. I don't see any reason to do anything but move him up the board, right? I mean, that's what's going to happen. Am I going to get many shares of his? Of all the rookie quarterbacks, he's a guy you want to get. I just think he's priced out for me. I don't think I'm going to be able to get him most of the time. But I advocate for getting him because he's going to definitely have some weeks that are pretty, that are nice and fantasy points. I don't know if I want to pay the price or, I'm not a rookie quarterback drafter in Bestball. I know last year that would have hurt me because I probably would not have had Baker Mayfield. I wouldn't have had Patrick Mahomes in his rookie season, even though I love Patrick Mahomes. I mean, that's one of my favorite quarterbacks in the recent past to come out of college. I hoped he succeeded. I thought he could, and I still did not take him, in Bestball unless I could get him later on. I would, of course, but that's the thing. If these guys are going higher, then I'm willing to take them. I'd rather go with something a little safer at the quarterback position, like a Phillip Rivers or something, who's also going to have some pretty huge weeks, and I'm not going to overpay for him either.
Yeah, well, and you look at it, how drafts are shaking out. You can get a Phillip Rivers in the last half of the draft. I mean, that's not a problem. So it kind of does take a lot of the top end wide receivers. I mean, a lot of the top end quarterbacks off the menu for me as well. I do wait until probably the 12th round before I get serious about a quarterback at this point. And for some reason, I want to call quarterbacks wide receivers, and I do not know why. I should call them running backs because you got guys who are like Josh Allen, who are putting the ball on the ground and making most of their noise with that.
Exactly. No, that's a good point. Quarterbacks can, I can take guys higher. I have in some of the, a couple of the play draft leagues we were in and drafting together. I took Mahomes and Baker Mayfield higher than I really wanted to, but I wanted to get a piece of them on my teams. But generally, I don't want to do that. I want to get value at quarterback and still get several good ones. So I like to wait a little on them because I feel like sometimes one quarterback, even in a super flex, guys just go nuts for quarterbacks. But then you get that run, and then everybody takes a quarterback before your turn, and but I'm still fine with getting Dak Prescott and Phillip Rivers and laughably, but Eli Manning late. He's practically free anymore.
Right.
I mean, Daniel Jones hasn't taken a regular season snap yet, and Eli Manning's not great, but he's going to have a week or two. He's going to have some weeks, and if he starts all season, so I don't get risky with it in Dynasty, but in Best Ball, I'll sometimes wait on quarterbacks like that.
Oh yeah, like I said, the payoff is pretty good. I'd rather run 3 lesser quarterbacks than run 2 really good ones.
Yeah, you said that. You're fine with going with the 3 sort of I don't want to say non-standard, but 3 lesser quality quarterbacks or riskier guys, right? Isn't that how you put it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go with guys like Josh Allen or guys who run the ball a little bit more, maybe don't pass as well, and then I'd like to mix in with one guy who can throw the ball down the field accurately as well too.
Yeah, mixing it up, but certainly not overpaying for the position like some people.
Right now, no. I mean, why do that when I can get Cousins in the last half of a draft?
Oh my God, Cousins! I mean, people are so sour on him from last year. I mean, do they think that that's what he is every season? Trending of the negative trending of players. Sometimes there is no doubt in my mind he's going to be better than last year, and that's a tremendous value to get him. I didn't even notice it. You said the last half of drafts.
Yeah, I mean, it's just insane how you can get him, in the 13th round in some drafts I've been in. I mean, that's just too low for a good starting quarterback who also happens to play in a dome, which helps too. I mean, you don't have that weather hanging over your head half the year.
Exactly. I think that's something to always keep in mind. And for some of the wide receivers with speed, playing in a dome, really any running back that catches the ball playing in a dome. I mean, really, I think it's a boost to any position, but there are certain positions that you could really capitalize on. Quarterback, wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those little intangibles that you can. Well, it's actually a pretty big tangible when you think about it. It's a municipal stadium. It's not an intangible if you can pay for a seat in it, but you get the idea. It breaks a lot of ties for me. speaking of running backs that we should probably cover is James Conner. He's fallen out of the first round. So, we're going to see his role in the offense. It looks like he's going to be rolled back a little bit, and he's going to be sharing some time with Jalen Samuels and possibly Benny Snell.
Yeah, I mean, I want to buy into that because I like Benny Snell, and I don't really own many shares of Conner. I think that the truth is probably in the middle somewhere. The Steelers typically ride one running back. James Conner did really well last year. I don't think he could carry the load the whole season, in my opinion. It seemed like he, wore down a little bit, was a little banged up, and you saw that in his stats declining, and that's to be expected. I mean, that was his first year doing that. It was a hell of a load to take on. I'm sure the Steelers don't want that to happen again, and they probably won't ride him quite as much. And Samuels, and they drafted Snell for a reason. He's he's good at a lot of things, and he could maybe be potentially a starting running back. And I've been getting him as many places as I can. I think he's going to get some action this year. Samuels is what he is. I don't think he's a starting running back caliber player. Right. That's just my opinion. I think he's good, and I think he offers them, a wrinkle in their offense. But I picture Snell as being like, if Conner goes down for the season or something like that, hopefully, knock on wood, that never happens.
Absolutely.
Ruin a lot of seasons, but I think Snell is really the next guy up as far as the more of the snap share owner in that offense and the next starter. But Conner's probably going to get a ton of love. Maybe he's not the James Conner of last year, but I still think he's going to be the running back one on that team unless he gets injured. Don't see any reason to worry yet. I think getting him in that position, like you said, is really a good place to take him. You should be all over that.
Yeah, I think second round James Conner is a very good value.
Very
I think,
appealing,
yeah, he's higher for me than second round than Gurley right now in the second round.
Well, he has two knees, right? He has two knees that work. That right there gives him a lot of extra points.
Yeah, the whole having two working legs things really does help in his factor. One thing that does kind of stick out to me, though, as a bit of a problem for James Conner is that Eddie Faulkner, the new running back coach, coached Jalen Samuels at NC State and coached him at tight end. So I'm interested in seeing what kind of passing usage Jalen Samuels seems to get in this new look offense for the Steelers.
Yeah, maybe they employ him in kind of an H-back role or something. I mean, they're definitely going to add some wrinkles to the offense. They no longer have Antonio Brown. They no longer have Le'Veon Bell. They showed they could weather that when Brown was with them. Who knows what that's going to change in this algebraic expression this year. I mean, if the chemistry experiment, you're losing two of your best players, fantasy players, in 2 years. And, it's definitely some changes like you just said with Faulkner and the I don't want to call it an H-back role, but typically, if you're playing running back, tight end, you're doing some flexing around like that's exciting for Samuel's position. I mean, honestly, that could mean better things for him than I even expect. But they need the Pittsburgh Steelers offense needs a running back. They need James Conner, and so even what's the floor for a player like him in that offense? It's still pretty damn high, and second round is awesome. Yeah. I like where you're going with that, though. These are the kind of things that can really separate you. If you're getting Samuels on your team, if you're getting Snell late in these drafts, they could potentially have a really nice starring role, at least at times, and that's huge. And they're players that I'm not talking about when I'm doing my best ball drafts. I'm not really talking about them much. I hope to maybe get them, whatever, it's fine, but they couldn't be difference makers this season for people.
Yeah, I mean, like the only thing that really interests me about Jalen Samuels is is the opportunity he could have in that passing game. I mean, that gives him enough upside for me in, say, around 9 or 10, which is where he's going, to really just go ahead and pull the trigger on him and see where he goes. Because he doesn't need James Conner. He doesn't need to be a handcuff.
No, he's going to be on the field either way. Yeah. And a lot of good advice. I've taken this advice over the years from multiple people is not to count on a handcuff that's only a handcuff. It's a guy that's already on the field, that's already involved in the offense, that is going to see increased work when the starter goes down. And Samuels is that guy right now because he's on the field, he's in the offense, they're working him in. If Conner gets hurt, that's going to boost his value even more. He's going to become more valuable. So, he's the best case scenario for that because he's already catching the ball. He's going to be involved, like you said, even more with his tight ends coach coming in like that. So that's a good person to point out. I think every show we should point out a player or two that we like that are kind of maybe flying a little bit still under the radar. Yeah,
Jalen Samuels, a poor man's Tevin Coleman.
There you go.
Yeah. I think that's where that's what his upside looks like. It's not where he's at yet, but that's where he could be. And at the 9th round, 10th round, that's an awesome pick.
Hey, man, I had fun this first episode with you. We could probably
All
talk
right,
for
man.
another hour.
Well, I'm glad we got this first episode and on the road and moving, and it felt really great to be with you again on the show.
Same here, man. It's exciting. Looking forward to the Bestball Maniacs on the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network. I think we're going to do great things with this.
Yep, get ready for us every Sunday here.
The show must go on. Yeah, we'll be on more of a regular schedule, and we're going to help you win.
Been fun being with you. My name's Brad Reyes, and you can find me at TQE, and my promo code over there is TQE69, and you can get our best ball coverage for $20 this year.
And I'm Jeremy Browen. You can find me on Twitter at DFF_Madman and on the Dynasty Trades HQ podcast every week as well. We'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody.